Everybody, welcome. My name is Emily Heist-Moss. I'm the Director of Alumni Programs at Girls Who Code. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for a GWC talk. I'm really excited to welcome back our moderator, Derek Brinkley. Derek joined us for our very first GWC talk a few months ago, and we enjoyed his advice and suggestions and attitude so much we invited him back. He'll be moderating our panel tonight, and Derek is the Assistant Vice President of Undergraduate Admissions at Columbia College Chicago. He is a true expert. He also helped launch the Arrupe College of Loyola University Chicago, a 2-year program designed for low-income, first-generation college students. In his free time, Derek enjoys spending time with friends, scuba diving, and doing CrossFit, which I'm sure is outdoors right now. Derek, when you're ready, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name's Derek Brinkley, as Emily said, and I'm so excited to be here with you all again this evening to discuss the computer science class experiences and any tips and tactics that helped our panelists succeed. And we're going to introduce our panelist here in just a second. And so thank you again for taking time out of everyone's busy schedule to be here with us this evening. For all of our viewers, we ask that you use the chat box that we have to share any thoughts that you have and questions that you have throughout the entire evening's conversation. And a member of the Girls Who Code staff will respond to any questions, comments, and concerns that you may have. So those are just some ground rules we want to set early in this process so that we have a really great event tonight. So I'm going to take the time to introduce our panelists. So first off, we have Kelsey Rodriguez. Say hello, Kelsey. Wave to the fine people. Kelsey is the Senior Application Engineer at Cadence Design Systems, which supports key customers by enhancing their design flows for cutting-edge technology. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and a Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering from UC San Diego. So we're glad that you're with us this evening, Kelsey. Thanks for being here. And then our second panelist is Christine Moretti. She is a software engineer at Prudential Financial and a full stack developer who uses traditional and modern technologies to design solutions. And she holds a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Engineering from the University of Maryland, College Park. And so we are super excited to have these two wonderful panelists. If you didn't wave hello to the people, Christine, wave hello to the people. I'm super excited to have folks here tonight. So what we are going to do is we're going to start off tonight with an icebreaker. And then we are going to follow that with some questions that will be addressed that will address the concerns of the Girls Who Code college-age alumni and various students across the country who are beginning, matriculating, or ending their college experience. So we're going to really take some time to really address some of the questions that you all have. And then at the end of the conversation, we'll have a Q&A segment that I'll lead with questions that we gathered in advance specifically from our users and from our viewers. So we're super excited about that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start this question off with our panelists. Kelsey, I'm going to have you answer this one first. What was your favorite computer science or non-computer science class when you were in undergrad?
Okay, so I actually aren't a computer science major. I'm an electrical engineering major, but I did take some CS courses. So I would have to say that my favorite was just the introduction to fundamentals of computer science. It was just basic C programming, because a lot of the key aspects that I learned there, I applied it to other languages and other problems. It's a great way of conquering problems. It really helps with problem solving. But for my non-favorite, or my favorite non-CS class, it's definitely more of a physics class. It was electromagnetics. So I'll leave that, just there.
Awesome, awesome. Christine, what about you? What were your favorite CS and non-CS courses?
Let's see, CS, I think it was the same. So it was my first CS class, and not so much like the material, but just how it was presented. So I had a really cool professor, like biker dude, and I was just like, okay, this is relatable. Like, it's not, you don't have to be like a certain kind of way to be a programmer. So it was just how the material was presented to me. It was so relatable. So yeah, he made the class epic, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing this. Um, yeah, and then non-CS, I'd have to say psychology. Like psychology was super interesting for me. It was just like using another part of your brain. So
Yeah,
I
for
enjoyed that.
sure.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So viewers, we want to hear from you, right? We want you to answer the poll question that should have just popped up on your screen. Is your favorite class computer science related, or is it a non-computer science related class? We're going to give you about 30 seconds to respond, and then we'll get that little piece of feedback, and then we'll move forward.
What about you, Derek? Do you have any favorite class?
You know, so I was a education major in college. And so for me, all of my favorite classes in college, in general, either were an education class, anything that allowed me to be in front of students, in front of people, getting a chance to teach, getting a chance to impart knowledge, helping students and seeing that light bulb that would go off with students when they learned a new concept, when they really understood how to multiply numbers or whatever that concept might have been. So I really, really, really enjoyed that course or those classes. I also had a really cool class at my undergrad called Marriage and Family. And it was team taught by a theology professor, a psychology professor, and a sociology professor. And so it talked about kind of the construct of marriage within societies and within different cultures. And it was really, really, really interesting to hear the perspective, especially from those different areas, those different fields, and how that really influenced, I guess, how different cultures and different areas looked at marriage. So that was my favorite course in college. Yeah, it was very different, very cool though. Very, very cool. So thanks to everyone for answering the poll. So about 53% of our attendees here said that a computer science course was their most favorite class in college, and about 48% said a non-computer science course. So really split down the middle. And I think it really goes to the point that whatever field you go into after you graduate from college, there really is the mix of the skill set that you're going to learn within your program, right? And I think the ability to think critically, the ability to speak properly, the ability to write properly, to problem solve, all of those things really, I think, go into a lot of us and our daily jobs and what it is that we do. And so I think that really speaks to having to use both your left brain and your right brain as we really go throughout our career. So I think that that's really awesome thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on and kind of move into our discussion questions. So we do have some questions that we want to ask our panelists this evening. And, we know that the computer science space is really dominated by a majority white men and Asian men, right? And it's one of the reasons why this organization, Girls Who Code, was really birthed and why it really came to be. And we also recognize that being a woman in the technical world has its barriers, and particularly as women of color, there are certainly, I would imagine, another set of challenges, even on top of just being a woman that you have to deal with. So really with that being said, I'm gonna direct this really and have Christine maybe answer this first, but what's one piece of advice you wish someone would have told you as an incoming student looking to major in computer sciences, or again, kind of the sciences in general?
Let's see, one piece of advice. I think perseverance is key. Like just anything like worth having, like it'll just take hours and time, but also people, surrounding yourself with good people. And that's, I mean, as much as there is, conflict and people will see you differently, there are also just there's a lot of good as well. So there are people you can align yourself with, people like you, people not like you, but if you both have the same end goal, you can work together. So yeah, I'd say like one, perseverance, and two, aligning yourself with the right people.
Awesome. Kelsey, what about you? What's that one piece of advice that you're like, man, someone should have told me this at the beginning of my program?
Definitely in the beginning, do not compare yourself to other people. You're going in and it's about you and your own development. So I think that was one thing I probably should have, took into consideration when I joined, because I went to a predominantly, white school, and especially in my courses, they were mostly men. So going in, you're already like the 1 out of 10 women that are in the class. So definitely leave that at the door. You're in there to learn. That would be my best advice.
Yeah, and I think those are both really great pieces of advice, and I think it really kind of gets to the notion that you got admitted into these colleges and in these programs for a specific reason, right? Those colleges, as someone who works in college admissions, and this is what I do, right? We don't admit students that we don't think are going to be successful in the program, and so really being able to be confident in yourself and know that you belong, even if it doesn't always look like you belong. Right. And I think about, not to compare my experience to the experience of our panelists, but being a Black man and being one of the only Black males in a lot of my classes in an education program, early childhood education program, a field that's dominated by women, and really having to know that I'm there for a reason. And I was chosen to be there for a reason. And so that confidence is, I think, really, really important. When you think about kind of moving into the next question, transitioning from high school to college is a very hectic process, I think, especially given where we are right now in the world with COVID, with a lot of the different challenges that we're having, I think, as a community. And so, you're transitioning from high school to college, it's hectic. You feel like you're getting the hang of things. And then you really have to make that decision of, is this the major that I really want to do? Is this the piece, the program that I really want to move forward with? And so, from our audience, we really want to know, at this point in time, have you declared your major? We're really curious if you have declared your major so far. So hopefully that poll question is popping up here. If it's not popping up now, it should be popping up shortly. There we go. And we want to get an idea if you have already declared your major. So while the audience is doing our poll, and I'll report those results here in just a few, Kelsey, can you tell us how and when you determined which computer science specialization you wanted to major in? Can you really kind of give us an insight into your process of deciding how you chose that?
Sure. So when I went into my undergrad, I already decided that I was going to do electrical engineering. I didn't go undecided. I already chose that major. And what really made me choose that was from courses and clubs that I did in high school. So I was in a robotics club and I did physics, and those kind of both helped me understand what I kind of wanted to do in the next 4 years, or what more information I wanted out of that area. So definitely, if you really like coursework that you've done in your last year of high school, and you want to do that going forward, that's always a leading way to decide whether the major is right for you.
And did you happen to change your major at all, Kelsey? Did you, like, once you entered college, did you stick with your major, or did you go and maybe switch concentrations or areas?
So for my master's, I did photonics, which is kind of a subdivision of electrical engineering. So for that one, I liked the way the field was underdeveloped, meaning there was a lot of research to be done. So I wanted to do my master's studies in that. And that's kind of the main specialization that I picked. It kind of incorporated electrical engineering and physics together. And so that's why I picked it.
Great, awesome. We've got the poll results before I ask Christine to kind of jump in with her answers, but it looks like 41% of students have not have declared their major, and then 59% of students have not declared their major. And so just a really interesting piece of advice, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. It's not an outlier in any way, shape, or form. Many students do enter into their college career without a major. They go in undecided. That is the most popular major, if you will, at the college I work for, and at most colleges that I've worked for in the past. And so totally okay if you don't know. But Christine, for you, how did you go through that process of picking what specialization you wanted to major in?
I'd have to say for me, it was more elimination of what I didn't want to do, which was, I don't know, it worked for me, but I mean, a lot of my family members are in like medicine and health, and I was like, I can't do that. But then I did, like in high school, I did enjoy like the math and the physics and the sciences. So I was like, I'll probably will stick to engineering. And entering college, I thought I was going to do civil engineering. Um, but once I took that first computer science class, I was like, forget that. This is so I would say just in your first year, like just take as many, it's the time that you have to really explore. You might not know what's out there. So it's, in a way, it's good to be undecided. It's like a lot more things are open to you. Um, so yeah, that's how I got into computer engineering.
You made the right choice.
I am very happy I did. Yeah.
And I think that that's spot on, Christine, in terms of coming in as an undecided student. I think sometimes students feel this pressure that I've got to enter in to college knowing exactly what it is that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I don't think that that's always possible. I'm 34 years old, and there are still days that I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll switch careers here, And so it's okay to take classes across campus and really get a sense of what you like and what you don't like, and using the resources that your campus has to offer. Many campuses have career centers, and they have assessments that you can take to help you understand what your skill sets are and how your skill sets might be best used as you move forward too. So really great stories that you all really kind of share with us about that. Now that both of you are working in the workforce, you're out, you're in your career, you're doing really awesome work. I'm sure you've had some time to reflect on your college experience and probably have realized that you've learned a lot from college and from what you went through there. Of all the lessons that you learned in the classes that you took, what skills, coding languages, and information helped you best prepare for your role as a full-time employee? And Christine, maybe if you want to take that one first for us.
Sure. One thing I do think college like really helped me in was Kelsey had mentioned earlier, like learning the basic principles. That will just take you, because with technology especially, things are always changing. So those basic principles, a lot of the newer technologies are all built on that foundational layer. So I will say, like, a lot of the languages we had, I had some classes where we did like 5 programming languages in a semester, and it wasn't necessarily that they wanted us to master all those languages, it was just learning how to learn. So I think it's just, you need to realize you're always going to be learning. It's not like you finish college and you stop learning. So keep learning, like you're forever a student. That's what I'm learning. I still like learn new things. I still do classes, so definitely like just keep on the learning attitude.
Yeah, that's so spot on. Being a lifelong learner, I think, is just something that all of us should strive to be and should be. And we do continue to learn constantly throughout our careers and throughout our lives. And so that's a really, really great lesson that you learned. Kelsey, what about you? What do you think that you really learned? What skills, what informations, what experiences really helped best prepare you to be a full-time employee?
So a lot of my coursework was designed on problem solving. So a lot of assessing the issue and figuring out the best way to solve it. So I definitely apply that in my career right now. What I do is I take issues from customers and I find the best way to solve them, to find their pain points and minimize them. Definitely, you're always learning, just like what Christine said. I didn't know Python going into my job, but currently I do a lot of scripting to make things more efficient. So if I'm trying to test something, I will design a Python script in order to test it. I didn't know that, but having the fundamentals from that C class definitely helped me, grasp the language better than if I didn't have anything. So even though I'm not really using what I learned in school, having the background in it really helped me progress into my career right now.
Yeah, I think those solid foundations, those solid foundational courses and skills that people learn really can kind of help kind of through that process as well. And, I think for me, when I think about kind of going into the workforce and kind of what that really meant and how that really was going to manifest itself, it really, I think I used a lot of the skills that I actually learned outside of the classroom, right? I mean, I think that there's so much that we learn in the classroom, right? Which is awesome. And it's a really great thing to be able to do that. And at the same time, I think there's so much that you're going to learn through your clubs, through your organizations, through having leadership roles in some of these organizations. There's so much there in terms of learning how to speak, learning how to communicate, learning how to think critically, those problem solving skills that you really spoke of. Those kind of things can really help, I think, when you go into the workforce as well. So some really, 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 really great points there. So what we're going to do, we're going to move into some Q&A. And this is Q&A that we have gathered from you, our panelists, or not our panelists, our attendees, if you will, in advance to this particular panel. And we are going to pose these questions to each of our panelists and see what insight they can share with us. So our first question is from Mary M. And the question is, what, if anything, has ever made you want to stop pursuing or drop out of the STEM field or computer science? And what made you decide to stay with it? So have there ever been anything that's you've been like, you know what, maybe this is not for me, like I'm gonna go and do something else? Or what is it that actually keeps you in it, Kelsey?
For me, definitely seeing like a low grade on a final exam or something, getting a bad score in a class. Like I remember, even though the fundamentals that I say is one of my favorite CS classes, I didn't do exactly the greatest in that class. I think I ended up with a B or something in the class, when I'm coming from a high school, all A's, B's, I'm used to usually at that level of performing. And when you get a letter grade that you didn't feel like you need or would like, that could definitely, dimmer or put a dimmer on what you want to do in the future. So definitely getting that the first quarter for me made me question, like, is this really actually kind of what I want to be doing? But I continued the coursework to see if there was anything else, maybe if there was another pitfall in the future, then I would reconsider, and I didn't have it. So I definitely think, even though you get a low grade in one class, just try it one more time, keep going with the flow. And if you may find that it actually is great, and it comes back to be a positive experience.
Yeah, and I can so relate to that experience, Kelsey. I tell this story all the time with students that I work with, but I was a student in high school, 3.8 GPA student. I had a 28 ACT, like I did well, got into a great school. And at the end of my first semester, I had a 1.8 GPA, right? And you start really thinking about, and I think having that imposter syndrome, that should I be here? Do I belong here at this institution? Do I belong in this program that I've decided to go into? And I think to continue, to Kelsey's point, to continue to push yourself forward and say, this is just a roadblock. This is just one blip in my entire journey that I'm really going to have over the course of my years in college and after college, and know that you can get through that. You can certainly go through that process and come out of it on the other side and end up doing well. I graduated with a 3.0 GPA, which I was very excited about to have at the end of my 4 years in college. And so I think that persistence piece is really important. For you, Christine, what was it that might have made you stop pursuing a STEM field or computer science? And what was that thing that maybe turned it around for you to say, you know what, I'm going to keep going with it?
Yeah, I mean, I went through this like with every project I did. It was a lot of sleepless nights, and I was like, what am I doing? My friends are out having normal college experiences, and I'm here in the library for hours on end, and this thing isn't compiling. So I think for me it was like the long nights, and I had some like mental breakdowns. But at the end of the day, like things did compile. I like would have, like however long it took, it was so rewarding though, like to see something that can't come out of your head onto a computer. So yeah, a lot of moments of doubt, but I will say it was rewarding to see something from my head in a screen.
I'm going to go off script for a second because that's what I like to do sometimes. And I'm really curious, kind of to your point, Christine, how do you deal with that self-care piece of it, right? I mean, what are the things between the two of you that you really do in order to stay motivated, in order to make sure that you can kind of take care of yourself? Because I think there, you know, in college, there are a lot of those sleepless nights and really tough exams and, you know, moments that you think, man, how am I actually going to get through this? And so for you, both of you, I'm really, really curious how you really dealt with the self-care part of it as you went through college.
Let's see. My sister will tell you that she was my crying shoulder. But I think it's like having a support system, really knowing, like having people you can really turn to and be like, listen, I really had a hard day. Like, I just need to have ice cream and just binge watch something. And yeah, so like a support system. And if not that, also just being kind to yourself, realizing, okay, you know what, this Saturday, I'm gonna close my laptop, close my books, go for a run, do what I need to do to relax. Yeah, being like just kind with yourself, but also accountable, you know, be like, okay, Saturday I took a day off, Sunday I'm gonna get back to it. So yeah.
Yeah, Kelsey, what did you do in college to self-care?
So a lot of my friends were kind of in the same course. So whenever we had exams or whenever we had projects that were just so mind-boggling that once it was done, we'd all get together and just be like, oh, it's done. Like, yeah, we're free. And just have, you know, just to talk to each other and express like, what were the really hard things and how did they come and compare. And so it's kind of a way to de-stress after you've been ramping the stress the whole, you know, quarter basically. So that's kind of one thing that I did in college, is definitely finding people that can sympathize with what you're going to. You don't want to express your, you know, stress to someone who's partying all the time. Like, that's not going to help. You need to, you know, find someone that also is kind of around the same point you are and maybe build off each other and say, hey, look, I think you should try focusing on this next time and work from there. But I also agree that taking like a day off is really good, but be accountable, you know, make sure that just because you took a day off doesn't mean that you should continue it. It's just a good time to take care of yourself, maybe watch shows, go hang with friends so you can ignore the stress, but definitely get back on it because it's a slippery slope when you stop caring.
It's true. Things build up really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deadlines don't go away.
Exactly. It's going to be there tomorrow.
It certainly is going to be there tomorrow. So like, take your moment, take a day to yourself, but get back on that horse and make sure that you stay focused. Yeah. I baked cookies for my floor.
No.
Wow.
It's just what I do. So that was my self-care, was baking cookies and eating them. Probably not the best decision, but it's okay. The next question is from Maria M. The question is, with computer science classes becoming more intense every year, how do you balance taking several challenging classes each semester at once without confusing the information during exams? That's a really great question. And maybe Christine, if you want to maybe jump in on that one first.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I've never even thought about like, I think once you get into the classes, you do see differences. So like some things will be more algorithms, other things, I think it's like a per class basis. It might not happen as frequently as you'd think to confuse information. But let's see. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'd say.
I like it. No, and I think that you're spot on. I think that people think that it's going to be one of those things where you confuse things more than you maybe do, in a way. Kelsey, what's your insight on that question? How might have you kind of kept some of that information separate?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time where I was in an exam and I wrote down another exam kind of situation. And I don't think I've had something like that. I may have spent more time studying one topic over the other. That I could see I've definitely probably have done. But I think to that extent, if for some reason you have exams on the same day, let's say final exams, and they're like back to back, sometimes you can talk to the professor and ask them like, look, I have these 2 exams right next to each other and they're very hard. Like, can I push one forward? Usually they're pretty lenient on that if you really explain that they're tough classes and you need a break in between, because 3-hour final exams are kill your brain. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's spot on as well. You know, I think one of the things that I always recommend to students, just in general, and it's a good habit to get into, is just continue as you are. If you're in high school and you're working towards college, or maybe you're in college and you're working kind of towards graduation, you know, I think the continued focus on organization and how you structure your day and structure, you know, what it is that you're doing on a regular basis. You know, I always tell folks, and this was the lesson that I learned after my 1.8 GPA semester that I had, but I learned that your education should be a full-time job. That is what you are in college to do, right? You're there to get that degree. And so from 9 to 5, you should be working on, or whatever that 8-hour time slot is during the day, you really should be focusing on your academics. And so that structure, I think, sometimes can help folks when it comes to balancing maybe material in different classes too. Yeah. We have another question, and it's from Christina Y. And the question is, in many of my major classes, I have noticed people are either already extremely familiar with the material, or they're quick learners, which makes me nervous about my career choice. How much prior coding experience is needed to successfully land an internship or a job? And so, Kelsey, I don't know if you have any insight on that piece of it.
So I think it kind of goes along with don't compare yourself. I know I have many classes where people have come in knowing pretty much the whole content of the class, or having the previous exams and using that as a reference. So, you know, there's no point in comparing with them. They already have a leg up. You just need to focus on understanding the material, because professors design the class for, you know, entry people to understand it. So if it says you require a specific knowledge beforehand, then maybe you should. But if it doesn't say any knowledge is required, then I think going into it without any prior knowledge is totally fine, as long as you put in the effort for it. For prior coding experience, since I didn't really have that much other than coursework, I really can't comment too much on this, but I definitely think that having any sort of coding language in your back pocket is a plus, because every company wants to be efficient, and they can always do that by scripting. So that's what I learned in my current job, that having some fundamentals of understanding how to write a code, read someone else's code, is really important. And if it says on the job description no coding, then maybe you should take a couple hours to refresh. But that's all I can say.
Great. What about you, Christine? Any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like some coding experiences needed, necessary, just to like be able to like have a conversation and really understand. But a lot of times, like I've just seen in like the real world, you learn on the job. Like you learn, and people are there. Like in my first job, I remember I was like so scared, like in my first task, like not to ask questions. And my manager was like, if you have any questions, ask me. And then I was like, wait, do you really mean that? Like, I don't get, like, I thought like I was gonna be punished, because I didn't know something. And he was like, no, we're a team. So I think like post-college, you get more into like, they're not necessarily out looking at you. They're just trying to finish a task. So, and the more that you can communicate, the better you can communicate like what you know and what you don't know. That's also really important, because A, you learn, and B, you do whatever you're doing better. So yeah, so a lot of the real world you learn on the job. So
yeah, it's true. I think internships obviously are important to have some sort of skill set to offer for whatever that internship is, but that's supposed to be a learning experience. Internships are designed to help you learn about a particular industry or about a particular field. And so you're right. I mean, there is a lot of that really occurs kind of on the fly on the job. I'm going to add in a question here. Do you have any advice? This was a really interesting one through our Q&A. Do you have any advice for someone who might be getting bullied or picked on for being a girl in computer science? And is that something that either of you have really dealt with?
I don't, maybe they said it behind my back, but I just wasn't paying attention. But no one has ever verbally said it to me. But you definitely get looks. You know, that's you go into a room with mainly men, like you're gonna get looks, and unfortunate that, you know, things like this do happen. But I would have to say, you know, they're just jealous. You know, you're you know, a female. You know, you're in you're threatening almost in a way. So just remember that, you know, and try to find people to support you, have your back. It may be hard in the beginning, but you'll find them. You'll find your crew.
It's true.
Love that. Christine, any additions to that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, for us to like really like make a difference, we have to be present, you know? So I remember one time I was at a tech talk, and this is like my first and only experience, but it shook me. I was at a tech talk and I was standing in the back because I just come from work. And I remember a guy came up to me and he was like, "Hey, do you know where I can get more napkins?" And he thought I was like there to assist with the program. And it just shook me because I hadn't experienced that in my life. And I was like, okay, well, no, I was like, well, I'm attending it too, but you can ask, you know, like, I'm sure you can find them there. So I think just being present is like less than enough, you know? So I would just like, it's more impactful just being there than even saying anything.
And like, let these men know that girls run the world. Like, it just really bothers me. I'm not gonna go on a soapbox about my feelings about all of this, but like, we need to let women run the world. That's like just what needs to happen. And so hold your head up high, keep moving forward. Like, do you, is what I say. Like, do you be in that room? And again, you know, it's definitely different, but similarly, being a Black man, being a gay man, being, you know, someone young, relatively young in my position, like, you just have to go in and know that people are going to talk. And at the end of the day, you're there for a reason. You were hired for your job for a reason. You got admitted into your school for a reason. And like, go and just do you. Like, live your life. I had to say that out loud. Okay. We have about 3-ish minutes left for questions, so I'm going to at least pull at least one more. Are there any resources or materials or tools that you would recommend for college students who are in tech? Anything that you have seen that's maybe been a lifesaver for you, maybe through your college years or after you graduated from college, in terms of tools, resources, materials, books, anything like that?
For me personally, it seems strange, but YouTube, if you definitely need help, like a math problem and you know, a physics problem or anything like that, or coding problem, if you go on YouTube and type kind of similar, you know, something similar to what the problem is, you'll find a step-by-step by someone, usually on a whiteboard, kind of going over it. So, you know, it's free. I mean, there's some ads, but you know, get around those. But yeah, definitely YouTube. Anyone can use it. So yeah.
For coding, I really like Udemy. I know a lot of schools might have can get you through a discount or something, but that if you want just to learn something really quickly, the classes are organized really well. If you have maybe a day, some classes can be a Python class, JavaScript, React. It can be a week of just making an intense schedule for yourself. They're really helpful. They go through the basics really well. So it's Udemy, Udemy.
Love it. Love resources like that. And again, I think continuing to check with I'm going to plug career centers again because they're one of my favorites. A lot of resources there, a lot of resources through college libraries, a lot of free resources that they really have to offer for students. Always something to think about. Your professors in their office hours, go to your professor's office hours. Go talk to your professors, they're there. Yeah. How often did you all do office hours with your professors? Would you say that was a pretty frequent occurrence, or usually when you just needed something, or how did that work for you?
So definitely, oh, go ahead, Christine, go.
No, I remember I found out about office hours a little too late until like my end of like second semester junior year, and I was like, what? Um, so I wish I knew sooner that my professors were just there literally ask, not out for me to ask questions. So yes, do office hours. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Yeah, definitely same thing. I didn't really use it during my undergrad. I really regret it now because I used it a lot during my master's because I just needed that extra help and they were willing, and there were TAs that also were helpful. So definitely don't be afraid. Like, even if you come in and you think that you're going to ask some silly question and they're going to look down on you, like, they won't. They'll walk you through it. I mean, they're there to help. And definitely if at the end of the quarter or semester you finally decide to go see the professor and you ask for help, they're gonna wonder, where were you during the whole semester? So definitely try to show face, a little bit of the time, so at the end you can be like, I've been there, I need help, please. So
and just to clarify, office hours, for anyone who doesn't know, who's not quite yet in college, a lot of professors will hold times during the week that students can walk in and ask questions or chat or get help on homework or on the reading. So definitely take advantage of office hours. We're going to ask one more question. I think this is kind of a fun one to end on. And the question is, if you had to pick another professional field, what would it be? And let's start with Kelsey. If you had to pick another field to be in, what do you think that might be for you?
I think maybe going towards like either, I have two different like in my mind. So one would be medicine, because I was always fascinated with it, but I can't grasp my head around chemistry. It's just too, I don't know why, that one just bothered me. But then also business, because I didn't realize how comfortable I am more or less kind of talking to people. And I think business has a lot of that aspect. As an engineer, you may not get that much experience, presenting or talking to groups or projects. So definitely maybe marketing, kind of that sort of concept is kind of interesting to me right now, but definitely those two. But it's very, very different.
Love that though. Christine, what about you? What would you do?
Ooh, well, probably I'd want to do something related with English and like poetry. So like being a writer. Yeah, I find that, I'm interested in psychology and like reading that kind of stuff. So I'd have very different, but totally other side. But I'd probably do like poetry, be a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are awesome fields. I like that. I've always wanted to do urban planning, which is so weird. But like, I'm so interested in how cities, thinking about coding and buildings and, how do you really structure cities in such a way to really serve the population in a really effective way. And so I've always wanted to go back to school for urban planning. And never have, and probably never will. But it would be fun.
You never know. You never know.
Right. It might happen one day.
Yeah.
For sure. It's so intriguing to me. So, well, awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Those were really, really, really great insights that both of you really had about your experiences. You had some great stories to share with our attendees, and we are so grateful for your time with us this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa from Girls Who Code, who has some last minute things to share.
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank you for joining us this evening. I'm bringing up the PowerPoint on the screen, 1 second. So if everyone doesn't mind taking out their phones, just holding it over the QR code, and mind taking our 1-minute survey just to let you know what we thought of the evening. Yeah. And if I just want to thank everyone, Derek, Christine, and Kelsey, for joining us this evening. It was wonderful hearing you talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you.